This is the Frontier Freedom Hour, sponsored by Centennial Institute at Colorado Christian University. Here's Jeff Hunt.
All right, on your ballot is Proposition HH, also known as Preparation HH, to solve all your property tax burning problems. Relief for that crazy property tax bill that you got, but it's not what it seems. You're going to read it, and when you initially read it, you're going to go, well, this sounds really good, right? Shall the state reduce property taxes for homes and businesses? Yes, please. But there's so much more there. It's hidden, it's tricky, and I give it to the left because an initial read of this sounds good, but in reality, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you more than you're going to save. How do we know that? Well, the team over at the Common Sense Institute here in Colorado did a deep dive on this. 45-page research paper is available on their website, commonsenseinstituteco.org, as in commonsenseinstituteco.org. Go there and check out all the different white papers. They have great research with regards to policy implications, how the decisions we're making at the Capitol are actually affecting us. Because if you got that property tax increase, you're going, what in the world? How did that happen? Well, we got here because of repeals of Gallagher, which we pushed back on in 2020. I pulled up our ballot guide. Listen to this, Mr. Director of Research, Tom Copeland. Amendment B repeals property tax assessment rates. Recommended vote from the Centennial Institute, no, because it will raise taxes. We're so smart. We're so smart, Tom. If only the people of Colorado would listen. Anyways, we got Chris Brown on the line talking to us about Proposition HH in this study. So, Chris, if I'm not a property owner, I'm a renter, is this really going to affect me?
Well, absolutely. I think bottom line, yes. Essentially a third of Colorado households are renters. So we talk a lot about homeowners, but reality, this is a large portion of Colorado. It's young voters, it's old voters. 33% of households or voters will not see any of the property tax relief, yet face the same future reductions in their paper refunds. So as a renter, you see no direct benefit from the property tax relief, yet face $5,119 in reduction in your TABOR refunds for two people in a household. So this is significant for renters over the long run, without a doubt.
You have a calculator. Tell us a little bit about this calculator. I'm interested in this. So how do I get to the calculator?
Yeah, go to mypropertytaxco.com. And we built this using publicly available data that we got from county assessors' offices. So county assessors are the entities that actually go out and value your property and then send that information to the treasurer that then calculates your property tax. So the assessor's office releases this information publicly, and we built a tool that allows you to go in, enter just 4 fields of information, ask for your address, an email address so we can send you some full results, ask whether or not you own or rent your home, and then whether or not you file taxes as an individual or a joint filer. Hit calculate, and it gives you a set of results to look at your current property tax, your property tax next year, your property tax next year under HH. We also offer an alternative look at how property tax might be impacted under potentially under a 4% cap. We want to use this site going forward. We know that HH does not provide a long-term solution for property tax reform because it doesn't fundamentally prevent the same thing happening again down the road when values spike. And so we want to use this tool to look at alternatives and let individuals weigh alternatives. So we threw in another active measure, Initiative 50, potential that would cap property tax at 4% as an alternative. And then we also offered, how would you be impacted over the next decade on your Tabor refund, assuming uniform refunds, either as a single filer or if you filed jointly. So try to keep it very simple, but offer voters a succinct tool that they could look at. Okay, here's my short-term impact versus my long-term impact, the trade-up on property tax against state taxes, and really then, link to our report and other resources to learn more.
mypropertytaxco.com. I just entered in a random address. Under current law, 16% increase. Under Proposition HH, 14% increase. So they're going to save, a little bit of money there. It's not a lot, but then they're going to lose $5,119 over the Tabor refund. So this is very clear. Tom, you want to say something?
Well, Chris, it seems to me like this is a sort of a strange version of income redistribution. Connected to, you talked about the school funding question. Based on how formulas work, the biggest beneficiaries of this massive increase in taxes will be the Aspen public schools and not the Pueblo public schools. And renters are going to end up foregoing $5,000 in Tabor, and the rest of us who are thankfully are homeowners will not. So is that wrong to think that this is kind of a weird income redistribution away from renters and lower income tax brackets up to those who are wealthier?
I guess I never really we didn't put it in those terms, but when you think about who pays disproportionately, certainly renters face disproportionate impacts without a doubt in under this scenario. And you are correct to point out, and I think it's incredibly relevant, that the formula for school finance disproportionately benefits those that have a higher cost of living. And as I think you appropriately put it, Aspen versus Pueblo is a great example. And it's interesting, a little bit of a side, but this year in the School Finance Act, in the legislation, the School Finance Act, it actually authorizes a task force to look at reforming the formula, acknowledging some of these challenges, something we've been beating on and talking about for years. Some of our fellows have talked about the challenges and the distribution of the formula. That's acknowledged in the School Finance Act, expected to be taken up in the next couple of years through a task force, and yet this funding comes now. It doesn't have any further strings attached. It doesn't reform the formula. It doesn't change that distribution. It doesn't prioritize student outcomes in any new way. And so I think your analysis is correct, that who disproportionately pays versus who benefits, it's definitely a little, arguably backwards.
All right, so we're going to recommend, do you guys come out with a ballot guide? Will you take an actual position on Proposition HH?
As an organization, we do not take stances on measures. We don't say vote for, we don't say vote against. We do have a ballot guide. We will have a ballot guide that really just boils down this analysis even more. And so we will put out a ballot guide that's really an educational piece, but we do not say vote for or against. We really want to just educate, inform, and let people kind of wade through and make their own decision based upon the analysis. But we will have a ballot guide.
Centennial Institute will be a clear hard no on this one. So you got same thing with the Proposition II, which I think gets into some other tax-related issues. That's one of the unique things about Colorado is that, from what I understand, guys, you might be better acquainted with this, but anything on odd years has to be tax-related. You don't get all those social issues on the odd years. Is that right?
It has to be Tabor related.
Tabor related, exactly. Yeah. So it is Tabor related. It has to.
Well, it's frankly, I mean, it's why it's on the ballot. For the last 2 years, the legislature has at least temporarily reduced property tax assessment rates. They could have done the same thing again this year. They could have put together the property tax reduction measures and passed that through the legislature, not needing to go to a vote of the people. The only reason it is on the ballot is because this time it is asking for an increase in state spending by increasing the Tabor limit. And so, yes, clearly very directly related to Tabor. And despite only having 2 measures on the ballot this year, I don't think it makes it any easier for voters to understand the details and the fine print on these.
Well, Chris, speaking of that, there's a lot of complex economic formulas going in here. Can you explain, I don't know, give us the 30-second version of how do you guys come up with these 10-year projections?
Yeah, we put, in an appendix, you can see some of our assumptions, but it's really just a matter of, putting together the best available information about how quickly we expect assessed value to increase, what inflation rates are expected to be, what population growth measures are expected to be. And all of that comes from public sources. The state demographer projects population. The Ledge Council has some forecasts out there for a few years on inflation, housing prices. There's other resources that project housing prices. So we also, look at historic trends and just say, what if this trend continued? So we put that information in the report, but it's really just kind of extending trends and saying, look, this is the likely outcome.
We're talking with Chris Brown, Vice President of Public Policy and Research with the Common Sense Institute. We're talking Proposition HH because it's going to be on your ballot in the mailbox before you know it. So you got to know the details. We'll continue this conversation when we return. You're listening to the Frontier Freedom Hour.